basis judgments then about what punishment should or should not follow. There is rightly a very broad spectrum of discretion, I think, appropriate to these exercises. And what I have seen is victims of true brutality and violence have an extraordinary capacity, as that I have witnessed, to extend forgiveness, to accept the extension of amnesty, the setting aside of consequences when there's acknowledgement of the truth. When there is some sense that there's no longer impunity, a social certainty that this can just be done again. And a sense on the part of the survivor that it is for themselves that they are making a step to get beyond this definition of their life or their existence that is consumed by this impending violence, but rather it is a piece of it, but not the whole story of their life. And they are making a choice to make that step. But that is very hard for them to do, it seems to me in my experience, if they are still in this larger social community context of impunity. There's a social certainty there will not be consequences for doing such.
Maybe to ask a question. Well, this, it seems to me that that's really experience bears this thesis. But my question is, how does one think of quote-unquote punishment or of no impunity? And I'm wondering whether reconciliation is compatible, say, or if, for instance, forgiveness is an essential element of reconciliation, whether it's compatible with retributive account of punishment. And my tendency would think that it isn't. My tendency would be to think that retributive account or punishment by kind of seeking to even the scores seems to almost even more divide and does not have as its goal a kind of community of peace and love established, right? It might be on the way there, but it's not that. And so my sense is, my question is whether then punishment need not be understood in terms of disciplinary way, reforming or containing somebody's actions, or something of that sort, rather than retributive ways. Because I think that that kind of punishment is not incompatible with forgiveness. I do it all the time. I always forgive my kids, and there's a timeout. Which has a very significant and important role. Indeed, they're not opposed at all. They're kind of aligned toward restitution of the person to the good from which they were fallen, and to the restitution of the social network of positive relationships.
I think that's true. From my experience or what I've seen, reconciliation, there is this larger goal beyond the evening of the score or something. For sure, that is not even the thing that I see survivors of violence and aggression wanting as an evening of the score. They may at some emotional level, but the deeper thing that allows them to actually move forward in their lives is this other way in which punishment on a spectrum allows them to sense that there's affirmation that what was done to them was wrong, which is an affirmation of their worth in many ways, it seems. Because that is the thing that is so torn by abuse and oppression, is their identity or so injured, not identity, but a sense of value and who they are. So that seems to be an important part of it, but it's not something that is dictated by a certain measure of punishment. I do, however, believe that the Bible bears this out, that it is perhaps a concession to our fallen world, that the fear of punishment is meant to be a restraint on the behavior. In the absence of the fear of consequences, human beings will do very bad things. And that it is the rightful role of the state to, with justice and equity and due process and all these proper controls, exercise coercion to create a apprehension and fear that there will be negative consequences for their behavior. But that to me is a sound theological proposition, whether it is a pragmatic accommodation to the fallen world rather than that which would be sought in the perfected kingdom. I have to ask a theologian.
That I would consider this as kind of deterrence, right?
Yes.
And rather than retribution, right? And if you think of it as deterrence, well, I suppose I might want to look at features of human nature, but I might want to look at the features of particular culture. And it may be for me an empirical question, whether actually deterrence does the work that we claim that it does. I don't think that I have particularly strong theological stakes in there being such a deterrence. I have a theological stake, I think. I have a theological stake in kind of restitution of moral worth of the victim. I have also a theological stake, I think, of a reassertion of the moral order in which both the victim and the perpetrator, which they share, and which is commonly accepted, and sometimes accepted against the wishes of one or the other of those. And I think that punishment, like apologies, restitution, various forms of punishments, they serve in part to function to restore that moral order in which positive relationships are possible.
I have plenty more questions, but I'd like to open the floor to you.
I was going to ask you to comment about restorative justice. And has it ever been used in these, situations like Rwanda? In other words, where the offense against the victim is somehow restored by the perpetrator, and therefore being able to create a just situation. So it's not amnesty, it's not, do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Before you answer that question, can you move your mic a little bit closer, Gary?
No, I'll just repeat the question quickly. What is the role of restorative justice, acts of restitution on the part of perpetrators to victims in these sort of post-conflict situations?
You probably actually studied intended. Because I can tell you, I'm familiar with it in very small context, but not as a phenomenon.
Well, I think let me talk about restitution rather than restorative justice, and because I'm not completely certain that I understand what restorative justice is, and I may have some gripes with this. A very good example, I think, of a book written on this is, which attempts something like that. I mean, there are others, but I think Dan Philpott's book, Just and Unjust Peace, does a very good job defending a position of this sort. I have come to think that restitution, some forms of restitution are really very, very important. I've come to think that they're very important in our personal lives. We have, as a church, on the whole, if I see things correctly, forgotten about restitution. I remember when my father became awakened as a Christian. He then traveled at took 2 or 3 weeks, traveled back to his village, and went from house to house where he, as a kid, thought that he did something wrong, talked to the person, looked him in the eyes, apologized for this, and said, you know, this is what I need to do. If you needed to do something in order to repair this, you know, I feel I'm compelled to do that. I think that's exactly right. This kind of restitution, otherwise apologies are cheap. Everybody can apologize, right? And we've become in the public today, all around the world, I mean, there are no end to apologies. So come on, stop apologizing, do something about it, is what you might want to say. It's great that people apologize, and sincere apology, I think, is one of the most difficult things a human being can do. But there are also manipulative apologies, especially you can see their manipulative character if they are not followed by restitution. Now the question then becomes, well, how does restitution function? What the measure of restitution is an appropriate one. I mean, we can discuss that issue. I'll just say what my colleague John Hare has written recently, which seemed to me exactly right, as an ideal case of restitution. Ideal case of restitution is that the victim, after he or she has been victimized and restitution has taken, after the restitution has taken place, is in this